solutions, which are the roots, otherwise known as zeros, to the polynomials using the graphing calculator, synthetic division, and the quadratic formula. So, what do we do first? We graph it. So, y equals x cubed minus 1. I feel like y'all started this one yesterday. But we didn't go over it, right?
No, we did.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because it was just like the one.
Oh yeah, that's right, because when you do synthetic division, you end up with all ones and a remainder of 0. And then that's a 1x squared plus 1x plus 1. And then we had one yesterday on the notes, that exact same trinomial. So when we did the quadratic formula, what were our 3 solutions? If they're on your paper, just tell me. 1 was the real solution? Negative 1/2 plus or minus I root 3 over 2. Okay, so your first solution is your real solution, and that's positive 1. That's the one you can see on the graph. Like when I graph x cubed minus 1, I see that it crosses through the x-axis at positive 1. So that's my one real solution. My other solutions are imaginary. The first one is negative 1/2 plus I root 3 over 2. And the second one is negative 1/2 minus I root 3 over 2. Okay? So let's look at number 2. The first thing you have to do is find the one real solution. And to find that, all you have to do is graph it. Okay, so we're going to start by graphing this polynomial. So you'll type it in, x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 12. Okay, now we know that we are supposed to have 3 solutions, 3 zeros, because it's degree 3. Your highest exponent is a 3. But when we graph it, we only see one solution, and that one solution is at positive 3, correct? So I know already one of my 3 solutions is positive 3. Now I have to find the other 2 solutions that are obviously imaginary, okay, because they're not visible on the graph. To do that, you use synthetic division. That 3 will go in the box, and then you bring down these numbers. 1, negative 3, 4, and negative 12. How'd I get 3? Okay, then the 1, the first number automatically drops. It then multiplies by the 3 to make a 3. That becomes 0. It then multiplies by the 3 to make a 0. That becomes 4. It multiplies by 3 to make a positive 12, and so you end up with a remainder of 0. Any questions? So everybody knows how I got the 3 from my box, how I got these 4 numbers, and how I ended up with these numbers? So remember, since your question started out x cubed, your answer starts x squared. So don't you have x squared plus a 0x plus 4? Well, is there really any need to write that 0x? So really all we have is x squared plus 4, correct? Now, if you wanted to, you could use quadratic formula. Your a would be 1, your b would be 0, and your c would be 4. But there's an easier way. You don't have to use quadratic formula when all you have is your x squared term and your constant. If your b is 0, like this one, and you didn't have to rewrite it, we can use another method called square root method. How would I get x by itself? Subtract the 4. So x squared equals what? Now how do I get the x by itself? Square root it. So x equals, what's the square root of 4? But since it was negative, you have to put an I, and then don't we always put plus or minus when we square root? So your second solution is 2i, and your third solution is negative 2i. Now remember yesterday we talked about how these can be plugged in. Like if I go and I type in x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 12, and I type in 3, let's see what happens. So for every x, I'm putting a 3 in its place. So there's your x cubed minus 3x squared. See, x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 12. But see how every single time I said x, I put a 3 in its place because we're saying that's one of my 3 solutions? Well, let's confirm that it is. It is. It equals 0, just like it said it would. Now let's type in our second one, 2i. So I'm going to type in the same thing, but in the place of all those 3's, I'm going to type in my second solution of 2i. So 2i cubed minus 3 times 2i squared plus 4 times 2i minus 12. It also equals 0, so that confirms for me that 2i is another one of the solutions because it made it equal 0. Now what am I going to type in? The negative 2i. You can retype it all in if you want, or you can go up till you laid it on top of it and hit enter, and it'll copy it, and then you could just go back through, and on every 2, do y'all know what to press? Second insert, and then just insert the negative instead of retyping it all in. But if you don't remember that, you can just retype it in. Now remember, knowing how to type in these answers is valuable because on the test, oops, I didn't hit second. On the test, you're going to have the choices. Oops. So couldn't you just type in the choices if you don't know how to do the method to find them? So see how now on every x place, I've replaced it with a negative 2i? And now I'm going to confirm that that's also my solution by hitting enter and seeing that it equals 0. Those are the 3 things that when entered into this equation for every x make it equal 0. Anything else would not make it equal 0. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, let's look at number 3 together, and then once we do that, I'll let you try one by yourself. Okay, number 3, what's the first thing I do? Graph it. Okay, by graphing it, we find what? The first real solution, which we'll also use for synthetic division. Okay, so 3x cubed plus x squared minus x plus 1. Okay, we know that it's degree 3 because the highest exponent is a 3. That lets us know we're going to have 3 solutions, which are also known as zeros or roots, but when we graph it, we only see 1, and that 1 is at negative 1, right? So I already know one of my 3 solutions is negative 1, because that's where it crosses the x-axis. Everybody with me? I'm going to use that solution of negative 1 in synthetic division. So I bring down the 3, the 1, this negative 1, and that positive 1. Okay, so now I drop down the 3. Remember how I told you the first number might not always be 1? It then multiplies by the box number and makes a negative 3. When you add those together, you get a negative 2, which you'll then multiply by negative 1 to get a positive 2. When you add those together, you will get a positive 1. And when you multiply that by your box number, you'll get a negative 1, which is a remainder of 0. Any questions? So does everybody feel pretty confident that they can get that far by themselves? Okay, now, since your question starts out x cubed, you start your answer x squared. So we have a 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. Now, that's not something we can do the square root method to. And why is that? Well, look, the only time you can do the square root method is when the middle cancels out, when your middle is 0. And all you're left with is an x squared term and a constant. With this one, the middle didn't cancel out, did it? So for this, we're going to have to use quadratic formula. So what's the first thing you should do? Identify your A, B, and C. Okay, what is your A? What's your B? Negative 2, and what's your C? Okay, so the formula is on the board, so you plug straight into it. X equals. The formula is negative B. So if you sit a negative 2 beside a negative sign, what does it become? positive 2. Then plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. You need to put parentheses around every number that you are filling in for a, b, and c. Except maybe this one. That one's not as important. But anything that you're plugging in for, you need to put parentheses around it. And then all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 3. Yes. Okay, so now we just start simplifying. So x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of what? Type all of that in and tell me what's up under the radical. Negative 8. And then all over 6. Okay, but you won't see that as an answer because 8 can be reduced. 4 times 2, 2 times 2, and then 2. So you circle your pairs, kill one, kick one out, and leave that one inside. So now when I rewrite this, I have x equals 2 plus or minus, instead of the square root of negative 8, isn't it 2i root 2? The negative becomes the I, and the 8 simplified to 2 root 2. And now at this point, I'm going to start splitting that 6 under each for reducing purposes. So like that reduces to 1/3, and then that reduces to 1/3, right? So for this one, do I really need to write that 1 beside the I? No. So there's your other 2 answers. Your first answer is negative 1. That's your real solution. And then your other 2 are imaginary. The first one is 1/3 plus I root 2 over 3. And the third one is 1/3 minus I root 2 over 3. To me, from here to here should be pretty easy for y'all. It's this that's probably still giving you trouble. Okay, but all of this should be starting to get easy for you, and then this is what you're probably still struggling with. Okay, you just got to practice. Some of them get easier, like some of them are perfect squares, and you don't have to worry about factor tree. Okay, try number 4 by yourself. Okay,
First you graph
Ray.
it.
First I graphed it.
It's
I actually need to graph it
it's
first.
4.
Okay, let me write that down.
It's 4.
Wait, why you saying so loud to say?
Cause she ain't typing it yet. Shut up. Shut up.
Guys, be quiet. Okay, when I graph it, what do I
4.
see?
4.
What's 4?
The end. Yeah, the whatever.
I know, and that's also known as my what? My real solution.
Yo.
I'm waiting on people to be quiet.
So now you put that in the box.
Okay, so I put that in the box. So Orlando, you take over.
Tell her what to bring down, B.
Be quiet.
Alright, I got this next part.
Okay, drop the 1. Okay, now Maddie, take over.
Okay, 1 times 4 equals 4. Negative 4, or, yeah, negative 4.
Right.
And then 4 times 4 equals negative 16. And then 9 equals positive 13. And then 13 times 4 is 16.
Which cancel out.
They
Remainder.
cancel out, make R.
Okay, DeAndre, take over. Okay. Now what do I do next? Grant.
Oh man.
What do I do next? Okay, what's the A? B? And C? Okay, so X equals, what do I put?
4.
Anybody really.
4 plus or minus.
Square